On today's Locked On Canadiens, how do current NHL market conditions affect the Habs? And Scott will make his exit.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1120 of Locked On Canadiens. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Every day, as you know, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined for the last time officially by the wonderful Scott Matla of Habs Eyes on the Prize. Scott, it is your last official show, but we are still doing a special goodbye episode, and you've promised you'll come back with like Buffalo Combine updates and things like that. How are you feeling after 5 years of doing this?
In the politest way possible, tired. As it turns out, building a podcast from the ground up, even with fantastic hosts, is a lot of work. And we have gotten to a place that is incredible that I hadn't thought possible when we had started. I know that we have more to talk about me, which I know I love talking about me so much. My therapist says I should do it more and be more open about myself, but this isn't therapy. This is a podcast. There's a lot. I'm excited for Friday night, which if you are not in the know, 7:30 p.m. Friday night is Hot Ones Part 2. I'm going to destroy my digestive tract for fun, I guess. Fun.
Didn't you isn't this your third Hot Ones?
Second Hot Ones. I did it once where I thought I was going to pass out in the chair when I was recording in our living room. We had the Flamin' Hot Mountain Dew challenge, which was horrifying.
That was what we were talking. Yeah. Because I remember there being one where it was like really hot. Anyways, so Friday night, tune in. Scott's doing his Hot Ones goodbye. I have some special surprises planned for that episode. It's going to be really fun, and we get to laugh at Scott eat something weird or disgusting or potentially delicious one last time. In the meantime, there are some contracts in the NHL that finally things are moving that took place, and we want to talk about how that affects the market and how those would affect the Habs in general. Is Necas the one that's the most important, Scott?
For me, yes, but no, because the Canadiens aren't looking to re-sign a big name forward right now, or they don't have an equivalent forward they're trying to sign. I do think it is important on the trade front side of things for the Canadiens. But the contract that was signed this week that actually there were a pair of them in Columbus, and you can listen to Locked On Blue Jackets to get our friend Jay's whole viewpoint on this, is Kent Johnson and Kirill Marchenko both signed a deal. Your hand went up. Did something happen?
No, because Jay also did some trade stuff, like looking at a potential Patrick Laine trade with the Habs. So check that out as well. Sorry. Go on.
No, like that's, and here's the thing is that like, because Jay asked us about that, like, hey, so our input is as part of that as well. That's not even a good sentence, but whatever. At this point is, I look at what the Blue Jackets with Don Waddell did for Kent Johnson is the one that I'm kind of focusing on here. Kirill Marchenko is also kind of a bridge deal to get him towards unrestricted free agency. And Kent Johnson was someone who came in, made the NHL team after playing in college, and then kind of bounced up and down last year, whether that was the coaching or the player or whatnot. And his new current contract, I believe it's 2 or 3 years at, just under $1.5 million. And this is why I wish currently we had cap friendly. I can't remember what the equivalent is to it now for.
Is it Puckpedia?
Yes, it is Puckpedia. Thank you. I was like, it's not. I started looking up Transfer Market, and I'm like, that's not the right one. That's soccer related.
That's a
So
different sport. And,
yes.
and that coupled with the Villa thing, I think Ian's never going to forgive you, Scott.
Yeah, well, it's his show now. He can do whatever he wants with it. So Kent Johnson got a 3-year deal, $1.8 million per year. So just over $1.5 million. Kirill Marchenko, 3 years, $3.85 million over that. And I think as I look at the deals for Justin Barron and Arber Xhekaj, that Kent Johnson deal, someone who is clearly an NHL quality player, but needs to be that next consistent level NHL player. If you get Xhekaj at 3 years at $1.8 million, I think you've done a really
That's
good.
a fantastic deal.
And I'm almost wondering if the Marchenko thing is going to be closer to what Goulie's going to get paid. I don't know what Caden Goulie's worth is because he's been very good, but also people maybe expect more. I don't know on that.
Also, he's been very injured.
Yes, through no fault of his own most of the time. People like to just injure Caden Goulie for some reason. But I think Kent Johnson getting that bridge deal, and I think there's still some restricted free agency time at the end of that, is exactly what I think I would want from in a deal for Arber Xhekaj. And as I'm looking at this, Ken Johnson and Kirill Marchenko will both be RFAs at the end of those 3-year deals, which if you're the Canadiens, that I think is your framework for maybe what you're looking for in a bridge deal. If you're going a bridge deal, if you are going that route with them, because Brock Faber, after one NHL season, got paid $8.5 million. So like, who knows? The market's getting a little crazy out there right now.
And I think the big thing about Kent Hughes is that he, having been an agent, and I think he's just like his hockey mind, the way it works, is that he will learn from things that other GMs do that are advantageous. But when something seems like a crazy idea as an agent, like I think he'll look at it and be like, if I would like be clapping myself on the back for getting that, I don't think necessarily that that's something that I should do as a GM. You know what I mean? Like, because it seems bridge deals are really tough because right now it feels like there are a lot of players that a bridge deal would do them disservice, and then at the end of it, they're going to get paid AF. And so it does seem like you can kind of temper that before they get into that, at the end of that 3 years when they're entering their prime and your team is contending, et cetera, et cetera. Like that's kind of a problem. So you kind of temper that by signing a long-term deal, like, Yuri Slafkovsky, if he had signed a bridge deal, like I'm just trying to think of like what happens after that. Like at the end of that 3 years, is he like asking for $12 million a year? So it just, it really, it makes sense for a lot of players. But then at the other at the other end of that is the player who wants to get paid, right? A bridge deal is essentially prove yourself to me, or we think you have potential, and we think we can pay you more, but prove yourself and earn it, right? So I find that it's really smart, but at the same time, somebody like Xhekaj getting a bridge deal like that, to me, like that doesn't make sense for the player. That makes sense for the team because the team's probably going to sign him to something similar at the end of that. So let me ask you this, Scott, real quick. Justin Barron or Arber Xhekaj? If you could only keep one, which one would you
Arber Xhekaj.
Just making sure.
And here's the thing is I've mentioned this I should have put Justin Barron in the video I did yesterday for make or break seasons on things, but I'm keep waiting for that next step, and maybe that next step is this year. I don't know, because I see flashes of good and I want that more and more and more. And being tied to the Arturi Lehkonen trade hurts that, hey, we gave up a guy who then went on to immediately win a Stanley Cup. Like that's tough. I like Xhekaj because I think he has some real upside offensively, and he's got, and I hate to say unicorn because it has this negative connotation to it, but he can skate and he can do all these things at a dude who is just his size, that if you can get him to rein in some of the bad habits there, you are looking at a potentially really a player like when Tom Wilson was good still, that kind of resets the market. That now everyone's like, I want something like that. You set the market inefficiency. If I had to keep one,
if Tom Wilson was good still.
when Tom Wilson was good, because there was a time that he was a very useful top six forward, and that time is no longer now. But that's neither here nor there. Capitals fans, don't come for my head. Also, with Martin Necas re-signing 2 years, $6.5 million per in Carolina, we will just redo this. Habs having interesting in him in 2 years when his contract is set to expire. So that door is closed. Let's reopen the door to Patrik Laine, who I think is probably now the top target in terms of trades out on the market in the NHL.
And we'll definitely be following that very closely. But in the meantime, on this next segment, I want to know what Scott really thinks about things and not just being, a podcast host. I'm going to ask him, I'm going to put him on the spot in just one moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the summer is starting up, the sports are winding down. And the thing is, I love sports. I never want them to stop. But as you know, the summer, there's a doldrums. It's like, it's not a great time for sports fans, other than watching the Olympics, obviously. There's the playoffs wind down and we're getting fewer games. FanDuel is going to let us keep the sports going whenever we want. All we got to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime we're in the mood for sports. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So we can't be too bummed about the lack of sports. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Scott. So what I wanted to do today was, we've been doing this podcast for 5 years and we've had a lot of takes. We've been really honest with our takes. And a lot of times we've been too nice to certain players or people or whatever. So I want to know, I'm going to put you kind of on the spot. You can't think. You have to answer with how you feel. Okay.
Me not thinking's never been a problem on this podcast before. It's been 5 years. That's just... How many of these have I done by the seat of my pants where I've sat down and been like, cool, we're doing this. I haven't written anything down. We're going to hope this works. So
the first thing I want to know is, do you have faith in this management group?
Absolutely. I think they've stuck to... Oh, you're rapid.
Go on. Go on. I just want to say,
I have faith in them because they have stuck to their plan, even when things have been bad and injuries and all these things that they could have pulled the lever and changed course, and they have stuck to it. And seemingly with Demidov in this last draft have really hit that next on-ramp for the next part of this, that I am trusting the plan because it is what they said it was. They haven't varied from that outside of a little few small things. They've stuck to what they said they were going to do. And I have faith that they're being upfront and direct with us on that. And that's all I can ask for.
If and when the Montreal Canadiens are, let's say, playing for the Stanley Cup, do you think Martin St. Louis will be the head coach of the team at that time? No time to think. Okay.
Here's the thing is, I'm going to say no, but I do think he might be still in the organization, whether it be in player development or someone else with that. But it also wouldn't surprise me if this team under Martin St. Louis just gets its act together in a lot of different ways with him as the coach, and he could win the cup and then just probably retire afterwards. And I don't think anyone would blame Martin St. Louis for it.
When do you think the next time the Montreal Canadiens are going to make the playoffs is?
2 years from now.
So not the 2025 summer or spring, but the 2026 spring?
Yep. Going into, the 2025-26 season. So yes, that I think will be the year they'll make it as a wild card team. Maybe they do something, maybe they don't, but I think that will be the first year that they make the playoffs since the Stanley Cup final.
Do you think that the people who think that the Canadiens are going to get stuck into another cycle of just no man's land where they're never making the playoffs and never drafting high enough, do you think those fears are unfounded?
Yes, I think that this is a team, like I said, do I have faith in this management group? I do. This is not a team that is going to be we're going to put 1 foot on this side of the fence and 1 foot on this side of the fence. Everything they have been done is planning for going forward, not staying how they are right now. The plan is to move forward regardless.
Do you think the Montreal Canadiens are ever going to actually land that prize free agent or that trade deadline player that everybody wants?
Yes, Sidney Crosby in 2 years.
And that's how you really feel.
Yeah, I think that with this team, with Slavkovsky hitting his stride, with Demidov coming in, with Suzuki and Caulfield being what they are, this young defensive group, potentially a standout goalie, there's going to be a player that's going to go, oh, this is my opportunity, whether it be 1 or 2 years, to like be that next up. Because Jeff Gorton, remember, is the one who brought Artemi Panarin to New York and turned the Rangers into a perennial contender that makes their fan base sad. Not Panarin's fault, but he was part of that, and that transformed that team, keeping Mika Zibanejad there and Chris Kreider there and surrounding them with upcoming talent on defense, guys like Adam Fox and Keandre Miller, etc. I think that when the Canadiens hit that stride, a lot of teams, taxes be damned, are going to look at this and go, that's a team on the rise that even if I'm not the top star on this team, there's a lot you can do with that. And even if it's a 1 year and then you get paid out like 1 year after that, I think the Canadiens are a lot closer to landing that splash than a lot of people might think.
Who is your favorite prospect in the Montreal Canadiens organization?
I'm sticking with Lane Hutson at this point. I love Lane Hutson. It's been a long time since we've seen a defenseman that dynamic in this organization, and he won't be a prospect for much longer based on the way he might go this NHL season.
What prospect do you like but are pretty certain will not pan out for the Montreal Canadiens?
It's Xavier Simoneau. I love the way that he plays hockey and that he's smaller French-Canadian Brendan Gallagher with more anger issues. He's everything you could want in a bottom six forward in that he's hardworking. He forechecks hard. He gets in people's faces, puts up points. It's between 2 injuries and just maybe not having the size for it. He's one that I'm a little bit worried about. If he does make it, I think he's going to be likely a 4th line checking winger. But you know what? That's not the worst thing in the world. He'd be homegrown talent for a late round pick again. You can't argue with getting NHL games out of a late round pick.
That's great value. Who out of Cole Caulfield and Juraj Slafkovsky do you think will be more important to when the Canadiens are contending?
Slafkovsky, not because I don't think Caulfield will be important. I think that it's a joint effort, but if Slafkovsky's ascent continues the way that it was the back half of this season, he's combining the goal scoring and playmaking that he got from his other 2 line mates in a giant man's body that really brings it to the next level, that as he continues to physically mature, he's going to become that player that go, how do you defend a guy who's 6'3", 240 pounds, and just does stuff like that, who has a mean streak in him too. It's when all of that gets put together, Slafkovsky becomes such a menace to play against that he's going to undeniably be that. I love Cole Caulfield. Everyone knows I love Cole Caulfield. But you can just be like, well, you're smaller. I'm just going to push you over and do stuff. You can't really bully Slafkovsky.
Out of all the teams we hate, this is like kind of like the Patrice Bergeron Award. Out of all the teams we hate, which player do you most want on the Habs?
Austin Matthews.
I knew you were going to say that, and I knew I was going to get mad, and I'm mad.
The thing is,
that guy.
He's got.
I know
hate
he's
him
got
too.
the talent. He's got the.
He's got the goal scoring
talented
talent, and he's got the defensive ability. He's an incredible player. It's just that he's got a receding hairline and douchey
and a
friends.
face that you want to punch.
Yeah, well, that goes for a lot of people because my second answer, quite frankly, was going to be Brady Tkachuk because you know what this team needs? More nuisances.
I absolutely agree with Brady Tkachuk, but there's I know Austin Matthews is the more talented player. He would bring more to this team. Just I hate that guy. Which team do you think we should hate that you secretly actually like?
Man, so you told me not to think. This is hard because when I hate, I actually hate for different reasons. I've grown very soft on the Canucks after this playoff run. I know we talked about this in, I think, one of our live streams or with Tony Ferrari off the air, but the fan base really grew on me during the Oilers season in the playoffs this year. In that, doxing me aside, watching the Canucks fan base team up on very dumb takes and very bad reporting is heartwarming, in that I might have held a grudge against them, but that has softened and moved inward to other provinces, namely Manitoba and parts of Alberta. So I think Vancouver is the one that I think a lot of Habs fans are annoyed with, but I have grown a soft spot for. That is going to be replaced by the Flyers fans who are just talking about Mishkov instead of Demidov in a whole stupid thing. And I'm glad I don't have to worry about debating it on this podcast next year.
And then which team that's like a universally liked team really just bugs you and you don't like them?
Carolina. Carolina the Habs hate for Carolina is a very unique thing because of the whole offer sheet thing. But everyone on the outside's like, LOL, they're edgy and fun. And it's like, no, this got old a while ago. You got all the goodwill from the bunch of jerks thing, and now you're just kind of annoying and you haven't won anything. Put up or shut up.
Yes. Okay. So, and then finally, you said 2 years for a return to the playoffs. How many years for a Stanley Cup win?
7.
7?
I'm
Not
pulling a
bad.
number completely out of my butt there because I imagine
I told you not
somewhere
to
in
think.
there will be a lockout.
Oh yes. And then
So
finally, which team, even whether or not you like them, which team do you think is kind of a hopeless case and they're so lost that it's going to take them at least 10 years to get back on track? This one's a tough one because I couldn't decide.
part of me says Edmonton because the minute McDavid leaves, that team is nothing. We'll see what Stan Bowman does there. Toronto is very much on the cusp of just collapsing upon itself. And I can't help but think that Craig Berube might actually get them to what they need to do. But it's going to be up to that core four because if they're not up to it this year, that team is, and for Toronto or Edmonton, Draisaitl's UFA this year after this season. McDavid's up in 2 years. If they don't run it back and get to a cup final again, you're starting back at ground zero with that team because the cap sucks because of Ken Holland and you're missing your generational star.
Are you ready to do your goodbyes, Scott?
No, but all good things must come to an end, unfortunately.
And that's coming up in just one moment. All right. So, as everyone knows, this is Scott's last official episode. Do not forget to tune in to Hot Ones 2.0 on Friday live. It's a live show, so you can join us and comment and make fun and leave your messages for Scott as well. I have some surprises planned for that day as well, but make sure you do tune in. Same bad time, same bad channel. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
It's our podcast. What are they going to do? Fire me?
So we will be back, but this is Scott's last official episode. On August 1st will be my first episode with my new co-host Ian. Ian Boisvert, a lot of you know him already. Those of you who don't will get to know him and love him. I'm very, very excited about that. But at the same time, I am very, very sad that Scott is leaving. So I'm going to give him the floor in just a second. But I wanted to first read a goodbye message from the incoming host, which is Ian. And Scott, this is what he says. Scott, you've been an incredible host of this show and an equally incredible friend. While creating sports content can be a bit of a minefield, you've navigated it well. You've set such a high standard, not only as the host of the show, but as part of the Habs media landscape. Thanks for all your support over the years. I wouldn't be taking the helm without it. You're entering such an exciting moment of your life, and I wish you nothing but happiness as you go from golden retriever boyfriend to certified wife guy. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, man. Like, I knew I should have gone to therapy last week to talk about and process my feelings on this. That would have been great. Here's the thing is that I am nothing without the support system around me for this show. Laura and I have done this for a long time. We've been, coworkers before us on the prize before that and everything. This show doesn't get to where it is without the support and ability to work on ideas and thoughts for just putting everything together. When we started the show, we're like, wow, we have this idea, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this. And then we're like, okay, there's bye weeks and there's weeks off and the team sucks, or there's nothing going on because of things. And that's how we created things like 3 Up and 3 Down for that, our monthly like prospect recaps, doing the Friday mailbags and stuff. It's not all just myself. Is that if it were just me, I think I wouldn't have made it the 5 years to this point in the first place. Laura and I are some of the few OGs remaining from the launch of the Locked On NHL Network. And to be one of those, to get that far is like, it's a truly impressive thing for us. My fiance, who will listen to this at some point, we started dating when this show started. She was a law school student at that point, and I made her read over the contract for this while we were out on a date before I agreed to say yes to this.
And you had just started dating. Like, it was very early in your relationship.
It was about a month and a half into us dating. Yes. And then with that, supporting me through the launch of this and the struggles of figuring things out, and then a global pandemic happening, and that I'm not getting to spend time with her, and us not having anything to cover for like 4 months because of that, leading to a very fun, weird playoff run. And then the next year after that was, guess what? They went to the Stanley Cup final, and there's been so much, the support, and even just people who've taken interest when they hear like, oh, you know, you do a show. It's like, oh, I listened to this Locked On one and stuff like that. The outpouring has always been much appreciated, and that without the support of our regular listeners and the folks who jump in on all the classic jokes that we've had since day one. Mark Scheifele's a coward, you know, we hate this team. The Cole Coffee means everything. You know, like, there's going to be a B small score goals tattoo done on my arm at some point in the near future here. Like, there's so much that without the community, we wouldn't have that same drive to make sure we are giving you that best content. And I hope now that after 1,146 total episodes, including bonus and full episodes, 5 years, a Stanley Cup final, a first overall pick, that in my time as one of your hosts, I have given you every single bit that I could to make this entertaining for you. And without, you know, the support and just everything, I don't know if I would have been able to do this without y'all. It's going to be different, not coming home from work and taking the dog out and having dinner and then getting ready to sit down and figure out a show and everything. It's going to be a really weird change. And I'm going to miss it a lot. But, you know, time marches forward, not backwards, and life is changing, that I needed to, you know, be able to do that. So I appreciate everyone giving Ian his warm welcome. I know the show's in good hands with Laura already here. Ian stepping in is going to be a flawless transition, and there will be new heights for this show that I truly cannot wait to see, because I can do the That's Chappy. I did that podcast at one point and helped it get to where it is. I'm not good at speaking, which is not a good sign before a wedding at any point in time, but it's going to be different. And I want to thank you all for 5 incredible years on my part, except for the Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, Edmonton Oilers, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Winnipeg Jets, the Carolina Hurricanes, Tampa Bay Lightning fans, and Nikita Kucherov, the Florida
Devils.
Panthers, the state of Texas, that dude who pointed a gun at me one time in Buffalo, Sabres fans when they're good for like 3 weeks, the Bills for breaking my heart, the Packers for breaking my heart, the Habs for breaking my heart, the Red Sox for breaking my heart. I could go on. We are going to address actually all of the enemies in Hot Ones while I am crying tears of hot sauce. So definitely tune in for that. I usually don't talk this much unless I'm just hosting the show, so this is weird for me.
I wanted to give you the floor, but I did really, I think, you know, I just wanted to say thank you, because I think doing the show for 5 years is not easy. I think most people can kind of think that a podcast is just always fun and games, and it's really not, particularly when it's one where it's like one of your jobs, like literal jobs. And so when you are working very closely with a single person every single day, like, you have to have a very good working relationship, and you have to be able to trust them. And I think for me, like, that's the thing that I thank Scott the most for, in particular this past year, which I know has not been very easy for him either, but because I've had a lot of issues with depression and mental health, et cetera, like, Scott has really picked up a lot of slack on this show. And before that, we didn't have this issue, right? Like, this wasn't something that he needed to do, but I've always known for the 4 years prior to that, that if it ever came to it, that's what I would get in my co-host, is somebody who would help to take care of the show, to keep it in good hands, to make sure it keeps running, to make sure we get our episodes out, to make sure there is a show for you, all of you. And one thing that he's always said, and that I always believe, is that this isn't just our show, it is your show as well. And having someone who has that same approach to this is really important. Somebody who respects you, somebody who is a great working partner, but also somebody who like you can be friends with. You know, like I'm very excited for Scott's next chapter in his life, because I truly think that, you know, that's what you would want for a friend. But I also just really wanted to say thank you, because I could say many, many, many words, but they all boil down to my gratitude to Scott. I am going to miss him very much. I know, like, for the most part, I haven't been this emotional when we talk about this. It's just because I am very confident that the show is in good hands, and that I am very confident that Ian is going to be fantastic as well. But I am truly, truly, truly going to miss Scott very, very, very much. And that's how I wanted. That's my thoughts. But you definitely want to tune in for Hot Ones, because I do have some surprises planned for that episode, much like when I surprised him on his 30th birthday. So just so you know what's coming. And I think that's it for me. Scott, do you have anything to say before I wind down and stop recording?
I don't think so. I'm not going anywhere. You'll still find me on social media. I'll still be around Eyes on the Prize. The top 25 under 25 is just kicking off. I'm not going far. And like I said, when we announced this, it's not goodbye. It's see you later. You will probably see me on this podcast more than you might like in my time away from it. So that is, I think that's about it. I'm excited for what comes next. I'm excited for what comes next on this show.
And if y'all want to see what the next chapter looks like, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are free and available everywhere. My next show will be introducing my co-host, Ian. We will have our very first episode. We'll kind of bounce takes off of each other. We've done episodes together before, but make sure you tune in for that. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens. You can send us questions to lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Questions, thoughts. You still have time to send messages for Scott that I can read out on Friday if you want. lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. And the YouTube, as you know, you can leave them in the comments. For the last time, to follow Scott on social media at Scott Matla. But going forward, follow maybe it's Ian. Thank you so much for listening. Ian and I will be back on our next show.